Quick check-in, let you guys know kind of what it's like out here on the streets doing outreach. Today is actually my off day for outreach. We typically don't do outreach on the weekends, but the other part of what we do is called emergency response. So I'm going now to get a family that was evicted from a hotel, a couple with 2 kids. They were evicted at 11 o'clock because they didn't have the $86 for the room. It's crazy how these hotels will charge one price Monday through Friday, and they'll go up significantly on the weekends, which puts people already struggling at a disadvantage to come up with the extra money. So this couple, family was evicted, so want to pick them up and get them in a more affordable hotel for the weekend, and hopefully on Monday we can find a longer term option to give them some more stable housing in a hotel. The hotel game is really a hustle. It's really a challenge for a lot of people, but without any other affordable housing options, many of them revert to hotels. So I'm not going to show their faces, but I'm going to pull up, and they're supposed to be at the Chevron. Where's the Chevron? I don't see a Chevron. I see it sitting. Oh, they're supposed to be at the gas station over here. Let me see where they are. It's Exxon. I don't see a Chevron. There's not a Chevron over here, so let me see. They're at the Home Lodge. That's where they got evicted from. Where are they? Okay, yes, I have my phone in my hand while I'm driving. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm in Forest Park too, if anybody knows what that looks like. But I'm not texting, I'm just recording. Let me see if I can find these people. They're actually right across from a normal place we service. This is a abandoned Waffle House that has about 9 people living in it. So that's a place we service throughout the week. But they're apparently across the street. Let me call him and see where he is. If I can call him while you guys are still alive, let me see. I'm back. So I had the wrong hotel, so let me go around the corner and pick them up. It's really challenging when there's kids involved. It's rough enough dealing with adults, but when you got little babies on the streets, or facing being on the streets, that's really a tough situation. So you got to kind of jump to action and make something happen. Again, I can't thank you all enough for supporting our work, so we can be responsive in situations like this. Sometimes grants won't cover certain things or certain expenses, but the flexibility of donation money allows us to do what needs to happen without all the red tape of a grant. So I do definitely appreciate you all support, so we can do these things like this on the fly. Put my phone down a little bit because Forest Park is pretty hot. I think I just waved to you guys. I'm not used to this live stuff. I think I waved to everybody. Appreciate you all following and checking things out. There's a chevron. Okay. Let's see here. Somewhere. Oh, there ain't big kind of lodge. Okay. I think that's them in the back of the building. Let me see. Okay, that would be them. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause. Okay, I don't see children. Let me. Okay, well, thank you guys for following. I will check in with you later on. Bye. Thanks.
Well, I guess I want to start. I want to welcome everybody to Tabernacle Talks. And I am so excited because I do think we have an invisible hero. And the invisible hero that we have with us today is Darryll Starks. Hey, Darryll.
How you doing, Michelle? Dr. Pierce.
I'm doing well. I'm so glad that you are here. And I've got, questions. I always have questions. So I guess the first thing is, I called you a hero and you're probably embarrassed about that. But I'm sure the audience saw that harrowing footage before we started the show. And they saw that you were out doing what I would consider a rescue. Okay. So if you could share with our audience what you used to do before you started rescuing families.
Okay, well, it was a very interesting transition. Went to school for engineering and had a 6-year career at IBM actually, and thought I was going to go the technical route to be an engineer at IBM. And then I read this quote. Now, I think it's one of the later questions, but I read this quote on one of my colleagues' wall. A quote by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and it said, "I will never be all that I ought to be until you are all that you ought to be." And you can never be all that you ought to be until I am all that I ought to be. And I read that and it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I realized that, at the time I'm working at IBM and my routine was to go to work, go to the gym, and go to Buckhead and party. That was my routine in my early 30s, so. But I read that quote and I started seeing the news. And at the time, the young Black youth were killing each other over starter jackets and gym shoes. And I'm like, well, what am I doing to address this problem? I'm hanging out here in Buckhead and doing my thing, but in the hood where my people are, these kids are dying. So within 6 months of reading that quote, I resigned from IBM and I joined forces with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Metro Atlanta to work directly with high-risk youth. So that's kind of how I left corporate America and got into social services.
Wow. Compelling story. So I was obviously taken aback by some of your footage and it just struck me cold. I just couldn't even move from watching some of the footage of one of your rescues. So you rescue individuals and you rescue families. Tell me what happens to children in those situations.
Well, fortunately, I don't have to encounter that many children, but there are rare occasions where there may be a mother with children. And with the resources I have, typically I will do a couple of nights in a hotel to get them stable, and then I will link them to another agency who has more capacity to help. So it may be linking them to another shelter that will give them a longer time in a shelter to kind of get more stability and come up with a longer plan to transition back into some type of housing. But typically I don't really have a lot to offer families. Now I can do clothing and food and things like that to kind of help with some essential items. But when it comes to those hardcore services they need, I typically will refer them to somebody else who has the ability to really help them on that level.
Okay, you left Buckhead. That's an amazing life that you left. And you obviously are dealing with some of the most vulnerable people in the world. And you say that the quote by King really inspired you. Tell us about Ujima and what made you start Ujima.
Well, Ujima Way is it was kind of a spinoff. We are fortunately in the week of Kwanzaa, and Ujima is one of the Kwanzaa principles, which means collective work and responsibility. and which translates into making your brothers and sisters' problem your problem and solving it together. So as I kind of look back over my life, and I realized what the kind of person I am and kind of the kind of life I live, the kind of family I come from that always wants to help the community and help people, it was a very fitting name to name the organization, Ujima Way. So after working 13 years at the Boys and Girls Clubs, I've self-published a book and co-authored a book and left the Boys and Girls Clubs to get out and field test my book with other nonprofits. And so I spent so many years building the dreams of other entrepreneurs and other agencies. In 2017, I said, let me take my talents and build my own dreams. So many times we give our vibranium from the movie away to other people, but why not take our brilliant ideas and the passion we have from helping our people and do our own thing. So I branched off from a nonprofit I worked with for 11 years and started my own nonprofit, and been out here in the trenches since 2017 doing the work and growing it to a point where I can really leave my legacy on the world of a nonprofit that I really feel is going to really help a lot of people.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. Absolutely amazing. So what's the most difficult obstacle that you face when trying to help the people or the population that you serve?
That's a good question. And my pastor will kill me. There's a little people pleaser in me, and we go through all these sermons about people pleasers, but there's a little bit of that in me, and sometimes I just can't help people. I mean, there's situations sometimes where there's severe mental illness, where there's really no resources I connect people to, and for instance, like now when it's cold outside, I really when I started doing outreach in March of this year, I knew in the back of my mind it's going to get cold. So my ultimate goal was to hopefully have everybody housed by the time it got cold. So now I find myself going into the new year. I deliver a meal. It's so heart-wrenching to deliver a meal in my nice warm truck to somebody who's in an abandoned building or sleeping in the woods or wherever they are, and give them that meal. And I hop back in my warm truck, and I know they're going to be in that cold situation that night, and it tears me apart because I just haven't been able to address all that yet with the right type of facilities and resources and housing options. So that really hurts. It really hurts that when I really can't help the people that are really pleading for the help. So meals are great. The nourishment is great. The PPE and the other things we provide are very essential that they need those. But at the end of the day, who wants to sleep on the freezing cold temperature? And that's a really rough thing for me to deal with.
Wow. So how's your organization funded? And give us an example of some of the services that you do offer.
Okay, so this has been a very good year for Ujima Way, actually. COVID has opened a lot of doors for us to do what we do. So we received our first federal grants this year. So we got quite a few federal grants, some other different grants. Walmart gave us 2 grants. I got some money from FEMA. So we got some good grants that came in. I have a great donor base, Facebook friends. They're really supportive, and they do birthday fundraisers and Giving Tuesday. So I get a good base of donations from Facebook. And then I have a contract that I'm still putting a lot of my own money into the nonprofit to really get it where it needs to be. So through a contract that I have, I put a lot of that money back into the agency. So this is one of my first years where we're bringing a lot of money in, which is really, really good. But next year, and I look to really engage my board a whole lot more to utilize their wisdom, resources to help things grow and kind of take some of the pressure off me. So right now we're funded pretty good for a small startup, but we're really looking to grow things in 2021. Some of the services we offer, one of our primary services is our Peach Residential Program, which is a housing program for homeless young men. So this is one of the first programs we launched, where we have a 12-bed facility between 2 houses. We have the capacity for 12 young men ages 18 to 24 who are homeless. These young men will either exiting the foster care system, they might be leaving jail or prison, or being homeless for some other reason or crisis. So we have the capacity to help those young men come in off the streets and get on their feet. We provide them with job training and everything they need to kind of get stabilized with IDs, birth certificates, and just to kind of help them get stabilized. So we'll do about 35 to 40 young men a year through that program. That's the outreach program is an extension of those services. Traditionally, since we launched, my focus has been on youth. I've been very youth focused, but when COVID hit, then we kind of got over into the adult populations with the outreach. So outreach is now a really big component of what we do, one of the primary components in addition to the housing program. I also have a component where we do some support for small nonprofits. So I help with grant writing, program development, curriculum development, and things along that line to help nonprofits thrive. One of the overarching goals for Ujima Way is to be a layer of support for small grassroots and nonprofits. We're not quite at that point yet to provide those services, but that is the ultimate goal. Because many agencies like myself that are small, 2 or 3 years in operation, don't qualify for some funding. It's very hard to get United Way funding sometimes. It's very hard to get federal grants. They want to match, or there's different barriers that small nonprofits face, as well as various vulnerabilities of small nonprofits. A lot of them don't last beyond 5 years. So the ultimate goal for Ujima Way is to be at layer of support where we can increase technical support, funding, and other resources to help these nonprofits thrive. So that's kind of where we're growing to. But right now, we're getting our feet wet in the direct services with the programs that we offer right now.
Now, it's interesting you talked about the impact of COVID on your funding source and that it's actually been helpful and opened up federal dollars. But obviously, we know that if people are in poverty and now you layer a pandemic on top of that, what issues are you seeing that are negatively impacting the population you serve as a result of the pandemic?
Another good question. As I think about that, one thing that I kind of, one way I can answer that is that the bulk of the people I serve have already been in crisis. So if they had a substance abuse issue or an addiction issue or PTSD, whatever they had pre-COVID, they were already in stress mode. They were already down. So the COVID just came along, and it affected them from a standpoint they didn't really understand it, because they don't have a lot of people like that don't have the education, the information. They don't have access to TV to learn what's going on. So we're doing our best to provide education and materials to understand COVID and what's going on, to help them stay safe. But they didn't. I mean, I can't speak for them, but from what I observed, it's just a little ripple in their road. Now, some people we deal with who have lost their jobs or there's been few who have been evicted because there's still a moratorium on evictions, but there are some who are struggling and extended to stay hotels and things of that nature. They're really hitting it pretty hard because here in Georgia, a lot of people will, if they lose their apartment, they'll go to an extended stay hotel, and those things cost you $300 a week, which is more than a mortgage. So they're struggling a lot of times to stay in a hotel just to not be on the streets. So, and I unfortunately see that going to spike soon as this moratorium is lifted and more people the eviction bans are lifted and more people are going to experience evictions. We're going to find a whole lot more that are on that spectrum of crisis where it's new to them, and it's really going to take them for a loop, because it really just there are a lot of people really haven't experienced it at that level. So and fortunately there's a lot of agencies are trying to ramp up services, and there's been a lot of money in Atlanta given out to eviction assistance, utility bill assistance, to help people kind of remain stable. So hopefully that will continue into the new year. So the bottom just won't fall all the way out. So as long as they can have some type of support to kind of maintain what they have or transition to something else, I think things will be, I guess I could say bearable, but it's
bearable for them.
It's rough for all of us, but we're just trying to shore up what we can and brace for impact, Now,
I was in a meeting and they were, of course, talking about the social impact of COVID. and that they're seeing increases in alcoholism, and you're seeing increases in people just not being able to cope. Are you seeing that as well?
Again, from the street outreach perspective, I really don't see that a lot. Um, I am dealing with a family that lost their home in a fire about 6 months ago, so they're kind of in that group that this is they're new to this, so they're sleeping in a van for whatever reasons with the mortgage and a lot of stuff tied up legally, so they've pretty much lost everything. The insurance money from the fire went right back to the bank, so they just kind of in a van sleeping in the van in a parking lot. So they're hit. They were hit a lot harder than the people who've been on the streets for like the last year or so, because they're new to it. So trying to provide the support we can, but there's a lot of stressors. There's a lot of frustration. The man, for example, feels that he's let his wife down, and so there's a lot of emotional toll in those situations, because again, this is new for a lot of people when they hit this level of nothingness, just where they just don't have anything. So, and I'm only speaking for the ones that I see. A lot of agencies I work with that do work more with families and young people. There's all levels of crisis there. One of the agencies I work with here in Clayton County called Hearts to Nourish Hope. We do a food pantry where we'll serve between 1,000 people a week in food, and just to see the lines of people coming through for food and dealing with the food insecurities and things of that nature. It's people are really going through a whole lot. So again, fortunately, agencies are here to help, but it's just we can only do what we can do for those that come through the doors.
I think you make a very interesting point that for people that have been on the streets, they have an understanding of what it's like to live on the streets. But when you've never lived on the streets and you've lost your home and you don't have a job and you don't have any means of income, I think that can be extremely stressful.
Right.
And put them in a situation that they don't know how to cope. And I can imagine that the people that live that way every day are probably still looking at that family like, at least you had a van to sleep in. If they had to be sarcastic, they would probably be like, we didn't even have that to sleep in. And it's just horrific, the things that we're seeing happen to individuals. Have you seen that there's been an availability of alternative housing?
No, not yet. That's one thing that I'm really looking to find, here in Clayton County. I just got a grant, for example, to do this, because I pitched them a proposal that a lot of times what I see is there's people who have SSI. There may be people that get between, say, $600-800 a month for SSI or SSDI, but that's not enough for an apartment. So what they typically do is take their money on the 3rd or the 1st, get about 2 or 3 weeks in a hotel, and they're back on the streets and that money runs out. So what I want to do, and there's very few affordable housing options, but to be creative and try to find ways to maybe pair two in an apartment or use Airbnbs, or there's a program called Pad Split. We're going to try to be very creative in whatever ways we can to maximize the resources they have with their government assistance checks, and put them in a situation where they're stable. And the funding we receive to help support that will hopefully keep a good percentage of them stably housed for a while, until they can maybe get more resources or find a little part-time job or whatever to kind of keep things floating. But it's really, really hard finding how affordable housing is it's kind of like spare change. Robin Harris said spare change, or was it Robin Harris? Eddie Murphy said spare change. What's spare change? So what's affordable housing like? Because it depends upon what you can afford.
What you can afford, right?
If you can afford it, it's not affordable. So it's really a challenge to try to find situations are situations that work. And so again, we're looking for buildings. There's abandoned hotels here that are just like empty, that we're trying to rally support behind. Let's get this hotel and fix it up. There's it's really crazy. And again, that's just dealing with the homeless population. Again, as this eviction bans lift, or this moratorium lifts, then we have these families that will be in this situation. What are we going to do then? Because it's a much tougher call when you got children on the streets or sleeping in cars. And so
you're right. And that's a tsunami. And that's the tsunami, because once that moratorium lifts on those evictions, your resources are really going to be taxed.
Okay, so we're back. I found a couple. They actually went back to their apartment, into their abandoned apartment, or evicted apartment, just to kind of get a few belongings. So we got that picked up. Call her back. So we're going to go ahead and get him in a home one. Home one is one of the hotels here in Clayton County that Hearts to Nourish Hope uses to house families. $300 a week for a room. Do the math, so that's $1,200 a month. They stay packed with families who are imminently homeless, like a day away from being homeless, or a variety of reasons. People are here. This place is so busy with people at school, bus stops here doing school, to pick up kids who are living in a hotel. So it's really, it's great they're here, but it's really some other issues that need to be addressed.
Right. Those individuals that have never been in a system historically are going to need your support.
Exactly. And again, like affordable housing. So we really gotta try to find ways to be creative and try to find housing for people. And we're scratching our head every day trying to figure out what we can do. Can we find a building that we can convert to small apartments, small rooms, or whatever it looks like? I mean, I think I just saw in Charlotte that several nonprofits got together and they purchased an old hotel. They're using that for a homeless family. So those are great solutions. So we can maybe do something like that here, or even in other cities. I mean, there's real estate everywhere. And if developers just back off a little while and realize that there's social needs for these buildings also, not just making money, then maybe we can help some people with some of this property and real estate that's out here.
You have so many compelling stories that I know that one recent story that you shared was that you actually had a woman that, because of your assistance, you saved her life. Do you mind sharing that story?
Yes, that was a lady that I feed. There's about 10 people that live in this abandoned Waffle House, and I go on my nightly routine to deliver my meals. They came to the truck and said, so and so needs to go to the hospital because she's swollen up. She's swollen like a fish. Her face is swollen, her arms, everything's swollen up. So, I was in the middle of outreach, so I couldn't just stop that and take her to the hospital. So I said, I'll get her an Uber. Her and her boyfriend, I'll Uber to the hospital. So I set up an Uber, and the Uber took him over there, and he texted me back later on night and said, the doctor said if she didn't get there, if she got there tomorrow, it would have been too late. So fortunately, they recognized the seriousness of the situation, and we were able to respond quick enough to get her there to get the help she needed. She had surgery like the following, I think 2 days later she had surgery, and she's back in the same situation, which is really, really tough. There's another lady with the same condition. The lady sleeping in the van of the people that lost house in a fire. She also caught the same condition, sepsis. I never heard of sepsis until the first lady that caught it, and then a week later, another lady had caught it, and she had to be rushed by the ambulance to the hospital. And she had they cut a piece of skin out of her back. Her husband said he could put his fist in her back because the hole was so big that it cut the infection out. So this is a disease I never heard of, but yeah, fortunately, those two people were able to get the right medical help, and I was able to help with some funding we had to help get antibiotics and medication when they get out. We did put the one family in a hotel. One of my partners, Hearts to Nourish Hope, I got to give them a plug because we partnered with them, and they put them in a hotel for a month because we didn't want to return her back to that van with the open wound and the cold weather. Just was a really bad match. So we put her in a hotel for a month, and hopefully that'll give them a little more time to for her to get well, and we can come up with a strategy for long-term housing. So it's tough, but again, we were able to respond quickly enough to save her life. And I'm really, really happy that happened.
Well, I have to ask you a question. There are a lot of reports about that top 1% of millionaires and billionaires, and they own over 50% of the world's wealth. If you could look in that camera right now and talk to those millionaires and billionaires, what would you say to them?
Well, let's see. I think that most of them already have a cause. I lost my sister to cancer, and my mom succumbed to Alzheimer's. So I know the importance of giving money to those big multi-million-dollar nonprofits. But what I would say to those who want to give, I have a campaign called 5 on the Black Inside. or give me 5. So if you're going to give 95% to Sujiji Coleman or the big agencies, but 5% of your gift, give it to a small nonprofit. It could be a Black-led nonprofit, a minority-led, or it could be something dealing with animals, whatever it is. But if you could just proportion your donation to give some to the small grassroots, because they're doing phenomenal work, but sometimes they just need, not sometimes, they need the help. So if you could just maybe split it up and 5 on the Black hand side, and help us on this ground level, because we're doing the work as well.
Well, Darryll, your story is phenomenal. And I know you're very humble, and you certainly are one of those silent heroes. But I want to let you know that I think the work you're doing is remarkable, and it's just gut-wrenching. And for anyone out there, just to understand how blessed we are just to have the basic things that people don't have, that we take for granted. It takes people like you and like everyone, to be able to just give a little more and dig a little deeper if we can, to be able to help you. I'm going to give you the last word. Is there anything you want to say, or you feel you need to say to the audience that you have?
Well, okay. One thing I'll say is, again, like I said earlier, there's dozens of causes that demand our attention. Some people are passionate about youth. Some are passionate about animals, the environment, seniors, veterans. I just happen to be passionate about helping the homeless. But whatever it is that you choose to do, just do that. But one thing about the homeless population is, like, we see them, and it's like, if you can just do something to help, because it's like they're out there and they're not all on drugs. They're not all have mental illness. They're not all criminals. They didn't all mess their lives up. Sometimes things just happen. And, as many people say, we're only 2 or 3 paychecks away from being in the same situation a lot of times ourselves. So just do what you can to see people through and not see through them. And I think that will make a big difference. And if you don't have the capacity or the know-how to do it yourself, and you really want to do something, just maybe find an agency that's doing the work and just bless them with some gift cards or however you want to bless them, and let them do the work. And I think it'll make a big difference. So again, just find a way to get involved. We all have to, just like I said, the quote from King compelled me to leave corporate America to help the situation of crime with young Black youth. It morphed into something else. But again, I can never be all that I ought to be until you are all that you ought to be in. So we have to give back and help each other. And these times right now, Michelle, are crazy.
Yes.
The crime, and there's so much going on. There's so many issues that we're dealing with as a race, as a people, as a world, a nation. We just got to come together and help those that are less fortunate. So that's my last little bit. I do want to thank you for the opportunity to share back in my hometown of Dayton. I'm from Dayton. We didn't share. I'm from Dayton. I'm a Fairview Bulldog. And,
yes.
Most people at Tabernacle will know my dad, Royal Starks, and know my mom, Janie Starks.
Yes.
Who at Dayton, I know Royal. So those are my parents. I'm very proud of them. I think they laid the foundation for the work I do, because they did the same thing in Dayton.
Yes, they did.
Just want to thank you for the opportunity to share. And it's always good to just be connected with my people at home.
Thank you so much. I'm so proud, and just keep doing the work that you're doing. We need more people like you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Okay.
All right, I hope to see y'all after the COVID, and maybe I'll come back home.
I hope so too.
Or I guess whatever the next reunion is, I'll be there.
All right.
Okay.
Take care.
You too. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
It's hard out here. Nobody should be out here. It's crazy out here. Everybody will try something on you. I only got stabbed a couple of days ago. I got my jaw broken. My tooth is loose. It's crazy out here, not safe at all. People may say, oh, it's all good, it's all good. No, it's not. No, it's not. I can't even spend a day or night out here because it's crazy out here. I'm scared. But I can't do nothing. It's hard for me to even live out here because to be playing with it. I can't trust nobody that comes up to me. I'm antisocial. I barely talk. So all I say is everybody will get blessed. Just keep humble and stay calm. Pray every day that nothing bad happens to you and something will come to you.
Okay, and how old are you again? 26, right?
I'm 26 years old.
And how long you been on the streets?
I've been on the streets since 2012.
And you from Jamaica?
And I'm from Jamaica as well. So
No family here?
I have family here, but they don't want to talk to me, and that's crazy. That's crazy. Family should talk to you, but my family don't want to talk to me. The only family member that I had that wants to talk to me is my father. He's in Jamaica, and he's not an American citizen. He's illegal. He cannot come here. He don't got a visa or nothing like that. So it's hard out here. I understand that now. So, all I say is, everybody bugging like this, please stay humble and pray.
Right.